Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Building Blocks, where we get to hear from the best and the brightest about how they've tackled the hardest marketing challenges while optimally changing marketing for good. We're going to get an insider's view of the building blocks that they have used to forge their own successes. Today on the show, we have Antonio Lucio. In the marketing world, Antonio certainly needs no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. He's been a brand leader for decades, most notably in his global CMO roles at Facebook, HP, and Visa. He's also served as Chief Innovation and Portfolio Transformation Officer for PepsiCo. As we all expected, he was welcomed into the American Advertising Federation's Hall of Fame last year. Listen in as Antonio drops some knowledge on the power of failure, being resilient and curious, and being amazing at your craft first, then all other things are possible. I'm just thrilled to have the maestro on Building Blocks today. Antonio, thank you so much for joining me today. I love talking with you. For me, it's like coming home.
It's the same, man. I was saying, "Oh, you're going for an interview?" I said, "No, I'm having a conversation with my friend Josh." It's a completely different concept.
We're doing this series. It's called Building Blocks, and it's all about the foundational pieces that helped marketers or companies come together and realize all the things, all the pieces that they had to line up to get themselves to where they now are. And you, Antonio, are the perfect example of a person that has put together a long string of wonderful successes. Has there been a guiding force through this as a brief, as a through line that has allowed you to go from step to step? I mean, I could highlight, if you care to, from PepsiCo, Visa. Let me do this in order: PepsiCo, Visa, Meta.
No, PepsiCo, Visa, HP, and Meta.
HP, and then Meta, all CMOs. So I'm just curious if there is something that has been a through line for you
from the early days of. Antonio graduating from LSU, thinking that he was going to be a lawyer, ending up at Procter & Gamble by, frankly, luck, and then understanding that law was not for me and that I needed to develop a very different set of skills. I think curiosity and passion for learning is probably the one thing that I can identify from the very first job, learning a new discipline. I had not taken a business course, Josh, except for economics, which I found it intellectually stimulating. My major was history. Took lots of philosophy courses, lots of sociology, political science, literature. Logic. I mean, it was a true liberal arts background because I was going to go to law school.
Do you believe that an education in marketing is critical to be a good marketer?
What I want is people to have critical thinking and a balanced brain between the ability to analyze huge amounts of information and the ability to communicate very clearly.
Recognizing the influence of all the other things, the metaphors that I create when I'm talking to people are they can convince someone. If I can bring in another thing in another area into this relevant topic, and suddenly they can see the light. Like, oh, if it worked there, maybe it can work if it worked in football, maybe it can work here.
Yeah, the whole notion. And by the way, as we moved into a world where a lot of the stuff that we know today as specialties, like growth marketing,
right,
like coding, like targeting, are going to become automized and they're going to become commoditized. Things like critical thinking, the ability to connect dots that are not
illogical, right,
are logically connected, having the ability to search for truth, and having empathy for the people that you're serving and the people that you're working for and with are skills that I think are going to be needed more than ever.
You mentioned ChatGPT and the generative platforms. I start to think about the platforms as a co-pilot. When the calculator was invented, it's not like we all stopped doing math. We still do math. It's just done quicker and more accurately, perhaps. And computer, similar metaphor. I believe that the co-pilot of ChatGPT or any of the generative platforms will allow us to do something that took X time, now in one quarter X. Is that do you agree with that perspective?
I totally agree with that perspective, and I'm having conversations about it all the time. And remember, I'm 63. When I started working in marketing, and I would go to the advertising agency, there were people by hand doing typesetting for the posters and for the billboards and all that type of stuff. But then there was just you have the explosion of creativity that came when that was transformed into the digital world,
right?
And the number of new jobs that were created that nobody could even dream of,
right?
Because more digital channels were created, more ways of communicating with the consumer were created. I fundamentally believe that we are about to undergo the same sort of transformation in steroids. So what I tell people, including my daughter, some of them, like you were in the arts, like, oh my God, what are they going to remove actors? You have to play with it. You have to understand it.
Yeah.
You have to experiment with it. And you have to see it as the inevitable path of progress. And those that are able to adjust and leverage that as a partner, supplement, assistant, are going to do amazing things. It's kind of like competence is a given.
Right.
You are going to expect everyone's going to have to level up.
Yeah, I agree. You are particularly good at making amazing teams and having wonderful teams surround you. What are the building blocks you think that you use to sort of define an amazing team?
At my core, I am a teacher. So that means that I always, in every single company that I went through, I always started with the team that I had. So it's almost like
you come in and you're like, what do I got?
What do I got, and how can I make this team better? Most people, when you give them this challenge and when you actually are able to articulate and don't let go of the standards, are going to come up with you. Most of them are going to come up with you. So I feel incredibly proud that most of the people and teams that I led ended up doing amazing things.
They really have.
There are other CMOs that I know that have been incredibly successful by just bringing the same. You see them go from company to company to company, and they bring the same team of people with them, and there's a beauty to that as well. So I'm not going to make a call on which one is better. Mine was better for me, and I feel very proud of that.
I don't personally call you the maestro, but every now and then I do. But everyone else calls you the maestro. Why? How do you feel about that? And also, is it?
It makes me feel flattered and very uncomfortable because
you're an orchestra leader. I can see it. I see it. Do you see it?
As many accolades that I have received, I still struggle with a very big imposter syndrome.
Yeah, you and me both.
So I have and it's like people laugh at it. What? You were, and so I do. So when people put me in a pedestal or tell me maestro and all that, it's like, thank you. The more that you deal with it, the more that you put a light on it, meaning most of the times they're fears. The imposter is nothing more that fears that have not been uncovered. You put a light on it, and what you're going to see is sometimes there is a monster there, and you have to deal with that monster or run from that monster. But most of the time, it's just a shadow, and the moment that the light is on, you need to keep walking. But the whole notion of we all have it, we all deal with it day in and day out, and we can negotiate our way through it is what I've learned at this stage of my life.
I'm guessing you haven't won every single time you've gone up to the bat, as they say. You haven't hit a home run. No. So what is it like for you? What's a setback like for you? Describe, if you can, share with me a setback that you had that happened to you, and then what did you learn from it?
How many hours did you
Well, the thing is, building blocks is about like the successes and the failures that allow you to get to where you are.
You only grow if you make mistakes. For some reason, that's the way as humans we're built.
Right.
You learn a lot more when you fail than when you are incredibly successful.
Right.
And I can fundamentally go back and understand, even at some of my darkest hours, why falling to such level of depth was important learning for me to achieve. So it always makes sense looking back. It always feels awful when you're living through it. When I moved from Kraft, as I was a marketer, into PepsiCo,
Right.
the reason why I moved was because at the time, anyone who was in consumer good marketing, you didn't want to be a CMO. You wanted to be a CEO. You were going to run the company. PepsiCo told me that we are going to train you to become a general manager. So we're going to bring you in. We're going to send you to a warehouse in New Jersey so that you can get to learn the distribution business from the bottom up. And I went in like, Josh, I don't know, 7 months into it, there was a major meltdown in the company. It cost shareholders billions of dollars. And in my division, the international division, we had to fire 54% of the people.
Oh my.
Every single premise of the reasons why I had joined PepsiCo in the first place went down. It were eliminated. So you're not going to be a GM anymore because we're not going to own the operating company anymore. You're going back to Latin America. You're going back to marketing. You're going. So it was like, oof.
How'd you turn that into a success?
I've read about turnarounds, and they're normally nice Harvard Business Review cases where everything happens in 2 paragraphs.
Right.
This is my time to actually live through one.
Right.
And that plus I didn't want to give my Kraft friends the benefits of I had to return to Kraft because I made a business. And I think at the very immature Antonio of that time, that thing would probably have played a part. But also I need to learn this thing.
Yeah.
And a learning it takes, I tell everyone, and by the way, whether it has been my personal transformation or business transformation, it takes 2 years. 2 years for you to say, okay, now this is stable. You're going to make improvement, but it takes 2 years. There are no shortcuts. And thanks to that experience, I can actually share a lot of learnings with
other people.
So so what I'm saying is I've had my fair share of both professional and personal successes and failures, but failures are important building blocks to the title of learning. You learn so much more from that. And as I was telling my story, like, my God, I learned so much on this, that actually translated to this, which translated to this, to actually translate to a life.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, because I had this inclination, now I'm at Quad, it was a large manufacturing company, now effectively a marketing experience company because of our through-the-line offering. I've been in publishing, I've been in media, I've been in the agency side, I've been in film and TV. I purposefully switch industries because I like to have different experiences and learn. You purposefully have switched industries, massive shifts. I wonder about the value of lack of external experience for those individuals that stay somewhere for their whole career.
Again, I've seen successes and failures on both. In my particular case, once again, the throughput of learning has always been there. And then there was a key moment in my career. I was at PepsiCo, and PepsiCo had this retreat. They would take no more than 10 people a year to spend time with the ex-CEO, Roger Enrico, who had retired. And I remember, Roger, I have an issue. I said, what's going on? And I said, I want to be a marketer.
Right.
I love my craft. He looked at me and said, Antonio, I've known you a little bit. You're good at what you do. You're passionate about what you do. So, and this is, Josh, 20 years ago, he said, you're going to have a choice of being one of the top people in the world that define what your practice is. And it has its pluses and minuses.
Right.
One of the minuses is that the career of the marketer is shorter than the career of the CEO. Or you're going to be one of those thousands of really good general managers.
Mm-hmm.
And we need them as well. In one, you're going to be happy and fulfilled, and the other one, you're just going to be doing a job well.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do?
Did he know which one you were going to choose?
No. I came back, and then I told Indra Nui at the time I have to quit. And she goes like, why? And I said, because I want to be a marketer. I want to be a global marketer.
Right.
And if you want to be one of a really good marketer, you are going to, at least in my definition, you are going to need to be able to leverage your skills and to learn multiple categories.
You've gone through such a wonderful career history to allow you to come to this point where I'm, where we're friends and I know all the work that you're doing, and I celebrate it. And I want to have this interview include this critical facet, which highlights what I believe to be a business imperative that brands and companies need to respect. Can we talk about what you're doing in regards to the Aspen Institute in Yale, just so people who don't know what you're doing can know it? And I think this is a masterful piece of work that you're doing, and I think it deserves the spotlight.
The Leadership Empowerment Acceleration Project, or LEAP, was born out of an understanding that many people in the industry did not have the privilege that I did of growing in companies that fundamentally believe that leadership is something that need to be taught. My program is built, so it's basically 2 levels below the CMO, and I'm focusing on women and people of color. So 75% of my participants, 18 companies are participating now across multiple industries. The model is built on 4 variables: capability,
teaching them how to do the skills,
teaching them leadership. Second is community outside of the company. The third point, Josh, is mentoring, and I separate mentor from sponsor.
Yes.
Mentor is outside of the company. Mentor is someone that will give you the time of day and only have your best interest in mind. The definition of a sponsor is someone that will advocate for you when you're not around. It's not someone that just occasionally has coffee with you because you're nice. It's something that when you're not in the room, this job is for Josh. And by the way, Josh is not totally ready for this job, but we're going to give him a stretch assignment because his potential is higher than his current level of capabilities.
Right.
So
those 4 things.
It's those 4 things, depending on where you grew up and where you come up from in life. Some people have this from birth. My daughters today, they have the capability, they have a sense of community because of the schools that they went to. They have mentors that they have met at my dinner table or friends of friends, and they have sponsors. I didn't have that coming from Louisiana State University. As I evolved, I went like, wow, your career could move faster and you can have significantly an easier time adjusting and coping and leveraging each other's knowledge when you have a sense of community outside of the company and when you have mentors that actually can tell you, you know what, Josh, you're doing great, double down on it, or you know what, Josh, I don't think you're living with your purpose anymore.
Right.
Maybe you should leave.
Right. That's what a mentor can do for you.
That's what a mentor can do for me. The moment that I was able to find community on the last 12 years of my life, the moment that I began to cultivate mentors outside of my companies, my life changed because you feel significantly more supported.
I want to do, if you can, one question for me that would be people who are watching this who are like, Antonio Lucio, is, the maestro, and what do I want to start off a career in marketing. How do I do it? How do I get to your level? Like, these are the things that it's the questions I get asked a lot, like to get to where you are. What do you tell young people as the first step in the world of marketing?
What I tell everyone is in order to find the job you love the one that you have. I didn't get to love marketing until I became really good at marketing. You don't know what you're going to love until you get good at it. So the first responsibility that I tell all people in our craft, my LEAP members and all that, you have to get really, really good at your craft. The better that you get at your craft, the higher positions that you're going to achieve, the more difference you're going to make on people's life. And if you do that consistently, really good things are going to happen to you. You're going to have choices. Because if you're really good, you can say, I want the agency side, I want the client side. If I want a client side, I want to be a CMO. I want to be the head of strategy. I want to be the head of insights analytics. But you are not going to have those choices unless you are good at what you do. And that, to me, is the most important thing to focus on.
Antonio, thank you. Thank you from me. Thank you from Quad. Thank you for joining Building Blocks. Hearing you talk, I could listen to you for hours. You are brilliant. Thank you,
Well,
sir.
thank you. It's always fun to see you, to talk to you, and always learn something. So,
right.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I'm not sure you learned much from me. And
I always do. I always learn. I always do. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.